And Tori, I know that the notice has popped up, but it's still uploading.
No, that's fine.
We're live.
Okay. We good to go?
Yes,
Okay.
we are live. Yep.
Thank you, Katie. Okay, good morning, everybody. I'll get Ruben to open up the karakia this morning.
Kia tau ngā manaakitanga a te mea ngaro, ki runga, ki tēnā o tātou. Kia mahia te hua makihikihi. Kia toi te kupu, toi te mana, toi te aroha, toi te reo Māori. Kia tūturu, ka whakamaua, kia tīna, huie, tākie.
Thank you. Kia ora. Thank you, Ruben. Right, we'll start off with apologies this morning. I have received an apology from Jamie. And Andrew, you've got an apology for early departure.
For a partial absence or an early departure, just depending how long the meeting takes. I've got the difficulty of having two meetings running concurrently this morning. So I'm going to need to duck out at about 10:30, but I'll get back as soon as I can.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, so I've got two apologies this morning. Can I have a mover and a seconder for those?
Move.
Move by Ruben and seconded by Scott. All those in favour, just raise hands. That's carried, thank you. Right, so we're now on to confirmation of previous minutes. Is there anything that needs to be brought up regarding those? No, we'll ask that a mover. Moved, Nigel, seconded by Andrew. All those in favour? No, that's carried, thank you. Right, public forum this morning. We start off with Harry. Good morning, Harry. I see that you are on the call. You there, Harry?
Can you
Yep,
hear me?
there we go.
Okay?
Yes, we can. I'll put myself on mute, so go for it, Harry. Thank you.
Righto. I'm here to talk about the steam tug Littleton. This sort of makes a change, doesn't it? My role in this, my company does the certification, surveys and approvals for the vessel. We're the people that authorise it to operate. So a recap on the story so far. Tug Littleton arrived in the port in 1907 and it was operated by the Harbour Board. It was requisitioned by the Navy in World War II. It went back to reserve in the Harbour Board. And then in 1971, the Preservation Society saved it from the scrapyard. And the Preservation Society has been looking after it now for just over 50 years. So it's now 115 years old and still operational. I am fairly certain that it is now the oldest steam vessel operating in seawater anywhere in the world. There are a few older steam vessels in freshwater that are sort of none in a different league as far as us maritime people are concerned. Peninsula, of course, is in seawater, in freshwater, but it's actually 6 years younger than Littleton. So if you're looking at maritime heritage, Littleton is in the very top echelon worldwide. For example, there were 20,000 steam vessels built on the Clyde River in Scotland. Littleton is the only one that's still operating. I'm just going to show you a photo here. Can we see this photo? Yes. Littleton is escorting a ship down the harbour. The ship that it's escorting down the harbour is Nimrod. That's Shackleton's ship from an earlier expedition. I mean, currently there's a song and dance about finding the wreck of the Endurance. Endurance wasn't even built then. And the tug Littleton, of course, is still in the port and it's still in much the same condition. If you go down and look at the tug, you might say it's a bit tatty, and it is. It's never been restored. It's run by a volunteer group of mainly elderly gents on a tight budget. But on the other hand, it's not a static museum exhibit either. And it's pretty much all original. the boiler, engines, propulsion, deck machinery, it's all the real thing, pretty much unchanged since that photo was taken in 1908. We don't have a formal registration process for that sort of stuff in New Zealand, but if we did, it would be grade 1 material. So what does the future hold? Well, as far as the Preservation Society is concerned, and assuming they've got the energy, it will carry on indefinitely as an operating vessel, but with progressive improvements rather than deterioration. There will be problems to be overcome, there's bound to be, but it's survived to this point and it's become a valuable asset and they will keep it going. Firstly, there is a project to convert the boiler to run biofuels instead of coal, probably using wood pellets. So it will be green. It will retain the ability to burn coal, but normal operations will be using a clean burning fuel. So you still get the steam and only a little bit of smoke. Secondly, it's getting to the point of needing a major refit and overhaul, both to do with the age of the boiler and to make it more presentable and attractive. It probably needs a different management structure. It needs a permanently employed manager, and it needs different funding arrangements as well for long-term viability. City Council has provided heritage funding in the past, although it's only ever been a small part of the operating budget. I think there need to be further discussions on this. But looking into the future, the expectation is that the tug will continue as a very important part of Littleton's heritage. There is a current issue that I wish to bring to the board's attention. You may have noticed over this last summer that the tug has been berthed as dead berth inside the cruise ship terminal. It has been banished over there by Littleton Port Company. It's been sent to the naughty corner for some reason, but we're not clear on the reasons. It has made it very hard to operate and maintain the vessel over there, and it's removed the important connection between the township and the vessel by not having it publicly accessible. We're in discussions with the port company about this, but it's not an easy process. Maybe we need some board's assistance on this, and we will talk to you separately about that. The tug needs to be moved back to the town berth beside the Diamond Harbour Ferry. In the longer term, well, we don't really know what the long-term plan for the inner harbour looks like, but the tug needs to find a permanent berth in the inner harbour that has public access and where it can be properly maintained. We would like to think that would be high up on the list of any items for any plan for the future of the inner harbour. And we look forward to the support of the community board in keeping the tug Littleton operational for a very long time to come. So that's what I've got to say on that subject. Thank you for listening to me, and if you've got any questions, we're happy to take them.
Have we got any questions? Andrew, and then Ruben, then Nigel, then Tyrone. So Andrew.
So yeah, Harry, thanks very much indeed for the presentation and for raising the key points that you've raised. I mean, you're absolutely right. The tug has been an important part of Littleton's heritage for a very, very long time. We're fortunate to have had the very capable people that have kept it going for a very long time as well. And long may that continue to be the case. And when we changed the council's heritage strategy to include movable heritage, the tug Littleton was one of the heritage items in the city that we had in mind. So there's been a bit of thinking on this, but great that you presented to us this morning. Your role in this, are you a member of the Tug Preservation Society, or are you
I'm an honorary member. I'm their naval architect, so I do their technical work, and as I said, I do the certification for the vessel.
Excellent, because yeah, we've had presentations from them in the past, particularly around funding. But yeah, no, it's good to know that you're working with them in making the points that you've made this morning, that this is part of a joined up approach. That's good. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay. So Ruben, then Nigel, Ruben, Tyrone, then Nigel. I can't remember the order. Sorry, Ruben next.
Oh, thanks, Tori. Yeah, and thanks, Harry. Great to get an update. I'm a big fan of the tug, and I do like its current position, but that's just selfish because it means I can see it out my window. But totally hear you on needing to have it back closer for a number of reasons. Is there any reason it couldn't be in the marina at Tiana?
No particular reason. It's this vessel is of almost that size in the marina, but provision would have need to be made for that when the marina design was laid out. And There was some talk of it at the time, but it just didn't happen.
Thank you.
It also really needs to be in a location where you can get vehicles alongside for maintenance
Yep.
purposes.
Okay, Tyrone.
Got it, Harry. Thanks for coming to see us today. In terms of like the just sort of the day-to-day stuff that the tug does, you know, like school trips, charters, and all that sort of stuff. How busy is it these days in terms
It
of that
hasn't been
sort of
busy
stuff?
this summer. They're down to sailing once a fortnight. They were very busy last summer. The fact that they're not busy at the moment is put down to the people's reluctance to go out and sort of do things because of the COVID-19 and so on. In general, its popularity has been maintained over the years.
Yeah, it still does all the same things that it's always done.
Well, it's not where it's berthed at the
trips.
moment. Previously, it's held alongside functions, but they can't do that with a berth at the moment, of course.
Yeah, no, no, cool. All right, thanks. Cheers.
Thanks, Tyrone. Nigel.
Yeah, hi, Harry. It's good to see you on doing such great work here. Look, I think, do you know, there's a Banks Peninsula Award profile online, and it does say that heritage is highly valued. Is the tug mentioned in that profile? I know a lot of the museums aren't.
I don't know. I'll have to check on that.
It's just to try and get some energy around, I guess, the knowledge around that tug out in the public space, I'm thinking.
Yes, the Preservation Society and their work have been fairly low key in a way, you know, given the importance of the tug. But that sort of reflects who they are and what they're doing.
Yeah.
Their main focus is actually just keeping it going.
But it's a very valuable, like you say, heritage item for the peninsula.
Yes, it is.
We need to support it.
It is mentioned,
Any
Nigel.
Yeah. Okay. Any further? Is that okay, Scott?
Yeah, kia ora. Thanks, Harry, for your presentation, and I love the passion and obviously the dedication that you've got for the tug. I agree with you. It is an asset for the peninsula, well, not just the peninsula, New Zealand. You spoke about being in a publicly accessible place. Is that to have the tug open for the public all the time, or is that just for, you know, when you do your sailings or occasional events?
Well, they do the sailings and occasional events, but they also have a maintenance day every Thursday when people can go down and go through the tug. And just being able to go down and look at the tug from the wharf makes it sort of part of the township from people's point of view. You know, overseas visitors, some people come from overseas, especially to see the tug.
Yeah, right. Is there much cost in having the tug at a berth that, you know, I mean, you guys obviously volunteer, but what are the ongoing costs to maintain a tug?
Well, the port company, we must say that the port company have been very good to the tug over the years, and they don't charge for berthage, and they don't charge for some other items. They have been very supportive over the years. But it's just having the tug over at Z-berth has proved to be impractical. It's increased the cost and made it all more difficult.
Has there been any, have the Tug Society or the Preservation Society had any media coverage other than what I've seen on Facebook?
No, not really. There's been a very infrequent article in some of the local papers and things, but not really. They are reasonably low profile. However, they are coming up for a major work on the tug, as I said, converting to biofuels and so on. So that's a good opportunity to raise the profile of the whole business. Yeah, definitely. Yep. Get in touch with the media and push it for a separate berth. Yeah. So you've got my support anyway, and thanks for coming in. Cheers, mate. Thank you.
So, Harry, I think the group definitely does have the support of the board, and we're happy to write letters to that effect to say that we're happy to support, whether it be support in the way of other ongoing funding. So I'm sure the board can sort out a letter. I know the governance team does sort that out. So we'll get a letter of support for the Tug Society and the work that the team are doing. And I'm happy to have conversations with you outside as to what other things we can do to help. You know, it is very important to the heritage of the area as well as the country. So yeah, no, keen to carry on that conversation. So thank you, Harry.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Right, now we are moving on to the next public forum this morning. We've got Victoria on the line, we do. Unmute, Victoria.
You're muted, Victoria.
Got it. I think that's right.
Yes, no, thank you, Victoria. I'll leave it with you.
Let me see. I've got John Wright here with me, but I'll start, if you don't mind, with the Akaroa Museum. But firstly, I'd like to support Harry Stronach and the Littleton tug. It's a very, very important historic item, as he said, for the entire country, especially now with the focus on the Endurance and Frank Worsley. So I'll get into the museum section, if you don't mind. And our thanks, my thanks, and I think the community's thanks to the community board and council for reinstating the $40,000 budget cut to the Akaroa Museum back into the annual plan. However, I am very disappointed to note that the Akaroa Museum as a council facility, which has served Peninsula ratepayers, visitors, and from the Canterbury region, school groups, domestic visitors, and international tourists since 1964, was left out of the Banks Peninsula Ward profile. Had the museum been consulted, the faux pas, pardon my French, referring to historically French settled Akaroa could have been corrected. The profile says heritage is a major focus of the ward. As has been said before, heritage makes Akaroa a nice place to live, but history informs and enriches our lives and our future. To not acknowledge Tonga Te Whenua in the first instance is no longer acceptable, especially when New Zealand history will soon be taught in the school curriculum. There are also, in my view, a list of inaccuracies which require amendments. The facilities and amendments does not include the Akaroa Museum, which oversees and is responsible for 3 historic buildings, but there's no mention of these facts. Community infrastructure again states there are 19 council-owned facilities without mentioning the museum. I'd like to point out that Akaroa and the Bays are a 90-minute or more drive from Christchurch, and given the recent increase in the cost of petrol, it's doubtful that many Peninsula ratepayers will be making the long trip into town on a regular basis to participate in cultural activities such as visiting museums. Residents and students rely on local facilities inclusive of the Akaroa Library, O'Kane's Bay, and Akaroa Museums. The Museum Advisory Committee gets a brief mention on one of the pages, but it also requires a minimum of a paragraph covering the services which the museum provides. Community capacity map, sense of place fails to include the museum, which is a main resource for the town's history. And it's where visitors go to learn about the history. Bumping spaces mentions libraries, recreation and sports centers, and community halls, but not museums. There's a very dubious statement regarding the income from cruise ships. However, there is no mention that the museum contributed to the town's economy and well-being during the pandemic last year, when it hosted over 24,000 visitors. And I find it very, very hard to believe that these matters were a simple oversight. In my view, the council missed the boat. However, I do understand that as of Friday, Newsline posted a story about the discovery or finding of the Endurance. If you look at the international headlines, they're massive, focusing on the Endurance and Sir Ernest Shackleton, whose captain was Frank Worsley, born in Akaroa. If the Akaroa Museum had adequate funding, it could mount a major exhibition as international visitors start to return. Such an exhibition would have brought prestige and recognition to the council and wider Canterbury region. The museum has consistently provided a high level of professional service to the community, school groups, national and international visitors. And as a retired museum and art professional with a 37-year working knowledge about the Acro Museum, it's high time, in my view, that these facts be formally acknowledged by Christchurch City Council. The ward profile requires corrections and amendments before it is adopted by the council. And if you don't mind, I'll jump right into the wharf proposal. The council told the Fishermen's Association in July 2017 that if they forfeited Fishermen's Landing on the south side of the main wharf, that their needs would be accommodated when the new wharf upgrade was undertaken. The initial problem arose when Black Cat extended its building over most of Fishermen's Landing without the council being fully aware of what was taking place at the time. The economic livelihood of commercial wharf users is critical to the well-being of the community and the wider harbor basin area. Wharf submissions closed on January 31st. However, discussions have just commenced about finding a suitable structure for commercial operators to use during the 2 years or more while the old wharf is demolished and a new one built in its footprint, which is currently the council's preferred option. Providing a temporary structure should have been a high priority at the early stages of discussions. Few jetties exist, and those that do require extensive repair and extension to accommodate the draft of large boats at high tide. And I would add that's going to be a very expensive resource consent. Adding up the cost of staff time, consultant time, research planning, design, consenting, construction will require both time and money. The Fishermen's Association met with council staff last week to discuss the issue, but there are few options available, as you're aware. And John Wright, as president of the association, I think has found a very workable and simple solution to the problem. But I'll let John take over, and he and Nigel met on Saturday, so they're the best people to discuss the matter with you. So I'll turn the computer over. If you can see John. Yep, okay, great.
Yes, John Wright, Acro Fishermen's Association, and thank you for the opportunity. As Victoria mentioned, the preferred option at the moment for the council is to rebuild Drummond's Wharf to fill in the interim period of the rebuild. We see it as putting the cart before the horse, really. We'd like to see build the new wharf in the vicinity of Church Street in the Britomart area. That way, we're not spending 1 cent on consent or Drummond's Wharf. And our big concern is that we have fuel, power, water, sewerage and passenger access all still available on the old wharf. It may be too that the old wharf can support the construction of the new wharf. We have all the amenities on the old wharf. Blue Pearl, Black Cat continue for as long as it takes to build the new wharf. It may need, if that's considered, it will only need 1 consent for the new wharf. If there's any obstacles in the way that I'm unaware of, I'd like to hear of them and we can discuss it. But at the moment, the meetings that we've had with Kirsten and Paul Devlin just seem to be going around and around, and there's been no progress. I've been informed that at the moment there is nothing set in concrete, so options are available. That's pretty much all I've got to say. Are there any questions?
Right, so I'm happy to take questions. So Nigel, I assume, yep, Nigel.
Yeah, am I able to talk to this, or do I have to wait for members exchange?
Best to ask questions at this stage.
Well, I don't actually have a lot of questions. I fully understand, and thank you, John, for running up, and Victoria for the support. There are some grave concerns around the existing operators. Can you be a little bit specific about what those concerns are? I see the handling of the fish and the product and the fuel as being a big part of the concern. And I was talking to Murph yesterday. I went down, still looking for people, and I believe, and you probably could help me with this, that he thinks he might have to relocate to Littleton because of the time lag of 18 months to 2 years is pretty hard. Was that what you feel? Is that where you, can you be more explicit around some of those problems?
Yes,
John?
certainly the loading and unloading of our vessels. They've indicated that a crane could be put on a pontoon. I actually own the crane on the existing wharf now and pay a license to operate. They're suggesting that they put a crane on a pontoon, but that's only halfway there. You've still got to get the fish ashore. And it is very important. You get a hot day, fish on the deck. It's got to be put in a chiller as soon as possible. I can't see us loading wharf onto, say, Drummond's Wharf and making a little trailer to tow it ashore. And then that area of Drummond's Wharf is a very congested area, as we all know. Operating there would be a nightmare. I don't think it'll go down too well with the local shops in the area as well, Nigel.
Thank you. I'll talk some more on members exchange. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. Tyrone, I see you've got your hand up.
Oh yeah. Actually, I've got a question about the museum.
Okay. Yep.
Victoria. So, excuse my ignorance on this one. Like, so are we looking at a funding shortfall for operation of the museum here, pretty much? In your view?
Well, my understanding is that the $40,000 has been reinstated, which allows the museum to function as it has in previous years, but there's no fat on the bone. There's no meat.
Right.
It's a bare bone operation, and I would love to see an extensive exhibition about the Antarctic heritage of the area, but there's no funding for an exhibition. There's no ability to put an exhibition on. That requires some expense in terms of labels, display, etc. And I'm not asking for any money or anything. I'm just saying that I think not this year possibly, but in years to come, the museum really needs due consideration so it can function at its full capacity. And I think the profile is an indication of the lack of value that Christchurch City Council places on a facility that's been open to members of the public since 1967. I don't think they understand or give due consideration to the commitment of its staff, to the Friends of the Akaroa Museum and community. The amount of work that we all put into that facility is huge. And we don't get a thank you from the council. We just continue with our heads down, hoping we can keep the thing afloat. And that's not a fair way to operate, in my view. It is a tremendous resource, not only for Akaroa, but for the whole region, and I would say on a national level, especially now, since everyone is talking about the endurance and Ernest Shackleton with regard to Frank Worsley being a national and international hero. We could do so much more if the museum were treated in a fair and equal manner as a starting point, in my view.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. Just a really quick follow-up, if I may, Tori.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, like if you want to curate any sort of anything new or a bespoke kind of exhibition or anything like that, you're talking basically you've got to draw on voluntary hours and try and find some money from somewhere, but you know there's never any cash to do that, and so basically they're usually a non-starter before they start unless miracles happen.
The museum is able to put on 2 to 3 exhibitions a year on a professional level, and that's using in-house material, using its own collection as a base. And you have outstanding staff in Linda Wallace and Dan Smith. They are able to work with a minimum amount of money, long hours to work within house. But even at that, you have to formulate the display. You have to have images, items from the collection, labels, text, graphic designers. So that in itself is, you know, whatever minimal amount of money you've got to.
It's a mission.
Yeah. If you're talking about a major exhibition, say on Worsley and Shackleton and Antarctic history, that would be a year in terms of planning and research. It would be 12 to 14, maybe 18 months to put together a credible national exhibition, which is what the museum does. You don't whip it up overnight. It takes a long time to edit and groom and curate. It's possible. It's totally possible. But you need a lot of lead time and a bit of money.
And you need a lot of expertise kind of on the ground, which is, we're lucky to have.
You've got the expertise sitting here, but the council doesn't.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we do need to wrap this up this morning. We appreciate both points you've brought to our attention, Victoria, and I'm happy to help this going forward, because I do think you have raised a fair point that we do need to call out the both the Akaroa Museum and the O'Kane's Bay Museum in future, to highlight the significance to the board and board area. Yes, you have raised that point. So thank you both for your time this morning. And I appreciate the work that you've both put into your presentations and the stuff that's going on behind the scenes. I do know this is still being worked through, and hopefully there's going to be more conversations going forward of this one. So no, thank you. We appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, Liz, do we need to sign anything off on the behalf of the public forum?
It depends what the board wants to do. I've put down in terms of the TUG that the board supports the TUG Preservation Society and is happy to provide a letter of support and have ongoing conversations with the society about other ways that the board could support.
I think everybody is happy with that.
Yep.
Okay.
Akaroa Museum, I think, I don't think Victoria was asking for anything specific, but thanking for the 40,000.
Yes.
Let's come back
Can I
in.
say something? Can I say something?
Hang on. No, hang on, guys. We're just working through process at the moment, so hang on. So Liz, so you've got...
Well, I haven't got anything for that. Does the board want to make any sort of...
I believe we do.
So
Yeah, I do too.
what do you want to
We
do?
probably want to have a big convo about it at some stage, because the model is not working.
The fact that Victoria's quite right, the profile needs to be lifted. I mean, 1967, there's a lot of history in Akaroa that seems to be swept under the carpet. And she spoke about a national level, but internationally, there's a lot of history there, and it was the start of, the treaty and other stuff, not Shackleton and all these other things. So, yeah, I think the profile does need to be raised, and we need to not just get council funding, but national funding. That's my round anyway.
Okay, what we're doing right now is just trying to sort out process. So Liz, what do you need from us in a way of steer from what's come up this morning?
I need to know what the board wants to do about it, remembering that
We're in public
excuse me,
forum,
you
we've got
can't make any
restrictions.
resolutions in public forum, but you can ask for staff comment or refer things to a committee or council. But
Are we able to make a resolution and members exchange?
no, you're not allowed to make a resolution at this meeting.
Right. So the point of ongoing raising the profile within the board area, and obviously we've already formed the board. Sorry.
You could actually ask for maybe a briefing. In the past, the museum director has come to the board and given a briefing really about the museum and what it does, its main sort of assets and things like that. Perhaps you might want to do that.
That'd be good to have an update. Like I say, it has been a while since we've heard from the museum. I think
we do
in
have-
whole, the
we do
board is
have-
behind increasing the profile of the museum, both museums, and of course the TUG. Right, so Liz, what else can we do within the public forum? Sorry guys, public forum is restricted by what we can do. So we can, ask for further information or forward information to staff for further comment. And I think both presenters or three presenters this morning have raised valid points, and I do think we are going to have ongoing conversations regarding that. It's just we can't do that or move anything within.
Tori, may I make a suggestion? Can we ask staff to see where the history and the significant profile of the Akaroa Museum sits nationally? Because, I think getting a briefing from the curator or the volunteers we're sort of going around in circles.
I'm
I
not
agree.
talking, sorry, I'm not talking about the curator of the volunteers. I'm talking about the director of the museum, who is a Christchurch City Council staff member.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
And part
would
of that is you could actually ask for the briefing to cover its national profile, if you like.
Perfect. Thanks,
Yeah.
Liz. That's
Yeah.
Thanks for the guidance. That's good. I like that.
Okay, so Tyrone, then Ruben, then I see Pen. You've got your hand up. So
Ruben was before me,
okay, sorry, Ruben.
and Penny.
Sure.
My screen bounces around. So Ruben, okay, thank you, Tyrone.
I was just going to suggest two things. One would be that, and we can discuss it more in members exchange if that's easier, but one would be looking at a request that any future destination management plan puts a strong lens on museums, both buildings and living heritage, and also whether there's any funding support, which sounds a little bit like Inception, but the idea that there could be a DRF fund to engage somebody to then look into what other larger revenue pools are available outside of council funding for museums, both buildings and living history, as well as what council does, not as a way of council avoiding those costs.
Let's comment on that. So yeah,
I just noted that down.
okay, thank you. Pen?
So just firstly, just in response to Ruben, we have staff in the funding realm who already provide all of that advice to any organisation, and also that includes our own museum along with other museums. So they already do have access, really good access to funding information about everything historic and heritage, council and external. I'd like to say that I just want to comment on Victoria's community profile discussion today, that we'd be really happy to take her comments and feedback and consider a whole lot of that for inclusion in the profile. So we will update that. That's not a council thing. It's been a staff created document, Victoria, just FYI.
Right.
And it's interesting that you're making all these, this is just a comment from me, that you're making these points about the Akaroa Museum when you have an advisory committee who I would have thought would have brought these points to your attention. That's really one of the purposes of that committee, who met recently, and I don't know, so I haven't looked at those minutes, if this was discussed as part of the director's report at that meeting, but it would be good to have that kind of information flowing through your own committee.
Okay, thanks, Pen. Oh. Okay, Tyrone.
Oh, Nigel wanted to say something, so he can jump in ahead just to follow up.
Okay, Nigel.
Yeah, as the chair of that advisory group, it really wasn't noticed that profile had not been. We commented with a meeting with the mayor when we had a meeting with the mayor, Friends of the Museum had a meeting with the mayor and deputy mayor. We commented that there was nothing in the profile at that point, and it was only just in the last few days that it's popped up again that it's still not there. So it was outside of the time frame, I guess, for that meeting. but the strength of the connections with the Taka Paniki wanting to do have an exhibit in the museum and those types of things. It's very important with the things going forward that those profiles are recognised. Those as heritage is very definitely as educational facilities, you know.
Thank you, Nigel. Okay, Tyrone, and then we do need to carry on.
Thanks, Tori. Yeah, look, I mean, I really just am going to say much the same as everyone else. I guess what I want to, in answer to the question of like, what do we want to get out of this kind of discussion, given that we can't have a resolution or anything, if we sort of think about what does the future look like, you know, I'd love to be able to feel sure that our museums were sustainable in perpetuity, right? Like, I mean, it would be, we want to make sure that they're funded fully, you know, properly funded, that that, you know, exhibitions can happen, that people have access to the resources that they need, that, you know, that they can tap into national funding where required, all of those things. And it sounds like a lot of those things are actually in place, but we don't necessarily possess the bigger picture of how it all kind of fits together. So I guess, what is the thing that I want out of this? A way that we can talk about that and make sure that we can fill in the gaps where needed to, so that we can, you know, so that we can actually make some good action-based decisions or advocacy around the things that we need to in order to make sure that our museums are well taken care of and sustainable. You know, so what that looks like, I don't know, and what we need to do in this meeting to set ourselves on the path to do that, I don't know, and hopefully Liz can give us a steer. But you know, that's kind of where I would like to see things go.
Okay, thank you. Right, so Liz, you've got enough steer from the group as to how to go forward from this morning. Are we happy to move on?
I think it would actually be good for the board to have a briefing, get a really good understanding of what the museum does, how it operates, and as I said, some of it's really important pieces that it has. It's got a fabulous collection. So there would be a way for the board to get a good understanding about that. And of course, then everything always comes back to long-term plan and annual plan submissions. More long-term plan than annual plan.
Right.
I think that's a great idea, Liz. Would we be able to drop some questions in before the briefing so we get the answers that we're after? That'd be awesome if we could.
Yep,
Thank you.
totally. We can flick something around and ask for you to submit questions that we can send on to Linda.
Okay. Thank you. Right, I will close that part of the meeting. Thank you. Now moving on to, we do not have any deputations by appointment this morning, Liz, is that correct? Or has something come up in the meantime?
No, we were thinking that somebody might want to speak to the Takamatua Stream Esplanade Reserve, but we haven't heard from anybody.
Okay, no, thank you. So no deputations by appointment, and I haven't seen any presentations of petitions. So we can move on to item 7, and that's
sorry,
reserve
the
management.
Accra Wharf part of that public forum. Sorry, Tori.
Sorry, no, public forum. Okay, are we getting more information coming to us shortly? Is that my understanding? Because we still haven't had a decent briefing discussion about the whole project yet. We're still waiting for further information to come to us.
We could try and organise a briefing before the meeting, but if you recall, you've got a decision-making meeting, or a Part A decision-making meeting for the 4th of April.
I think we may need a discussion. Hang on. I think we do need a discussion, because we haven't had a decent update as to why they've got to these conclusions before we come to that decision-making meeting. I think it'd be good to get an understanding of how and why they got to those conclusions, because I think the last formal lot of information we got was leaning towards a different way. So yes, an update, a briefing before that decision-making meeting, I think is highly important. I know it's not far away, but I think we do need to have a chance to, you know, question a few things, as in how they got to that process. Anyway, so
the meeting for the 28th of March is looking very, very light, so you could extend the briefing on that day, and that's something
that would be really great.
We will discuss. We can discuss that this afternoon. Thank you, Liz. Okay, So you need anything else to close off
No.
that? No, thank you. Okay, so item 7, page 13, Reserve Management Committee. So it's just the one RMC minutes. Anyone got anything to raise, or we happy to move and second receiving of those minutes?
I just had a general question on RMC meetings, just given that we're only receiving the minutes for one meeting having taken place. I'm just wondering if we can get a sense of how many of the other RMCs are functioning with current COVID restrictions, are functioning and able to hold their regular meetings. Do we have any idea of that?
I've noticed a bit of a drop off personally, and I think the difficulty with Zoom is a problem for them.
Right, so Katie, thank you.
Yes, so we have sent out communications to our reserve management committees just about the fact that as we continue to operate under red, we're asking that they not meet in person. As the board can't meet in person, we're asking that the reserve management committees not meet either. So we are currently working with a few of them to offer alternative kind of audio-visual technologies. So we're looking into buying additional Zoom licenses for some of those committees to utilize if they're interested in holding meetings that way. Otherwise, some of the few RMCs that had started meeting have been canceled their meetings, not being able to meet in person, which is why you're seeing a much reduced meeting minutes coming to the board. So yeah, it's just kind of playing that by ear as we navigate our current COVID-19 restrictions.
Thank you, Katie, for the feedback. Okay, so Ruben, hopefully that answers your, yep, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah,
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've just receiving the minutes for the Diamond Harbour Reserve Management Committee meeting. Can I ask for a mover, please? Yep, Scott to move. And a seconder?
Happy to second.
Thank you, Ruben. So Scott move, seconded by Ruben. All those in favour? Raise your hands. That's carried. Thank you. Right, now we move on to Ekara Museum Advisory Committee meeting for the 23rd of February. Is there anything we needs to be raised regarding that?
There were no recommendations through to the board from that committee.
No, it's just receive the minutes.
I would move.
Okay, Nigel's happy to move those. Could I have a seconder, please? Okay, I'm happy to second. Okay, so moved by Nigel, seconded by myself. All those in favour? Yep, thank you. That's carried. Right. Okay, next on my agenda, I had the briefing from Project Littleton, but I do see that that's been postponed to a further date. That's great. Right, so item 10. Have we got Peter on? Hello, Peter. How's it going?
Good morning. Yes.
Right.
My involvement in the Takamatua landscape plan project is relatively recent, and principally as a report writer. I've been in sort of liaising with and got my information for the report from various other council staff, landscape architect, ecologist, and our local parks advisor on the ground, Kerry Bowen. So all three of those staff have got quite a history in working with what I can see as pretty engaged and motivated local community group, the Takamatua Environmental and Kaitiki Committee. My report is drafted with a little bit of urgency. There's some urgency around the group wanting some funding, and we're a little bit slow off the mark, realising that we needed board approval for the landscape plan to get to apply for the funding. So that's a little bit of background to the report. I presume it's taken as read, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Yes, I will take it. It has been read, so it doesn't. Okay, Nigel, any other questions? So Nigel, you can start off.
Yeah. No, I'm actually the liaison for the Te Whakatua ratepayers, and that's connected with all this. I've had some meetings around it. There was a talk of an MOU that was agreed upon around 10 years ago for that particular area that was never signed off. So can you help me sort of get through this between the MOU and this approval? Surely that MOU, if it was re-signed, would cover this approval.
Could you tell us a bit about what MOU that is, between which parties, and what it was meant to cover?
Well, the environmental group we're talking about who are doing that work on the waterway, I believe that I was told that there was an MOU agreed 10 years ago that was never signed, therefore it wasn't valid.
Okay.
If I'd just like some more information about that.
Yeah, that's I can't help, unfortunately. That sounds intriguing. And if some more information out there, I could you could ask other staff, but I'm not aware of that. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Okay, do we have any further questions regarding this report? Okay, look, it is fairly straightforward, and we have had presentations to the board previously about wanting to move forward in these projects. So if there's no further questions, we have got a recommendation on the table.
I'd like to move.
Okay, Nigel.
And I'm happy to second.
And Scott to second. So moved by Nigel, seconded by Scott. All those in favour? Aye. That's carried. So no, thank you for that, Peter. We appreciate your time, and we are behind this project, so it's great.
Great. Yeah, good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Penelope. Item 10, the area report for February.
Thank you, Tori. Another quite large report from the team.
What's going on? Does anyone have anything they want to, or actually, Pen, you want to?
Well, I just wanted to say that the community profiles are attached to the area report, which have already been a topic of discussion this morning. Or the community profile, we have one because we only have one ward for this board. So that is a snapshot in time with this new format that's happened for the last couple of years. We will endeavour to go in and do some updating around the museum. Thank you. And the other major attachment is the community board plan monitoring report, which is quite big. It's attachment C in there, which shows all of your priorities in your board plan and any actions that either the board or staff have taken to progress your priorities. So you'll see there's quite a bit in there for lots of them, and some of them don't have a lot of action on them. You do have a lot of priorities though. It's probably one of the biggest board plans across the city. Yeah. Liz, did you want to mention, or Katie, do you want to talk about any of the consultation stuff?
So there's, of course, we have our annual plan as well as ECANs to discuss, but there's also, I think Liz raised it previously, the Ministry for Primary Industries, the application to extend the Littleton Harbor Mataitai Reserve. So previously the board has, I think, just made, a simple submission showing its support for that extension or for those kind of requests. So that consultation closes on the 28th of March. So we'll just need to have that green light from the board if you're keen to provide that submission.
Before I come to questions with Ruben, should we just answer this one regarding the Mataitai? Are we happy to write a board submission in support of that? Can I get an indication that we are happy to do that? Thumbs up or yes, that's nod. Yep, thumbs up. Okay, Nigel, are you happy for the board to write write a letter of support in relation to the whakaraupo mataitai? Yep, okay. So yes, thank you, Katie. If we can get something sorted out regarding that, that'll be great. And I do think following on previous boards to say that we are in support of the aspirations of this. So no, thank you. Now, Ruben, you
completely
had a
lines
question.
up with lots of things that we support. So yeah, there's
Exactly.
no brainer really.
Yeah. So Ruben, you had a question for staff?
Yeah, I've got a couple, sorry. So the first is on the in the area report, just the update on the pool, Norman Kirk pool. Wondering if at some stage we're able to get an update on visitor numbers for this season, obviously in the context of COVID, but would be interesting to see where those are at. And I can find this out separately, which is what the closing date is or will be for this year, and also an update on where we're at with the potential of shifting to a pay-to-play system for that pool facility, just because that theoretically should increase access on a casual basis for people to be able to get into that pool.
Yeah. Sorry. More questions about the pool?
No, that's all the pool questions.
Can I respond to that one first?
Perfect, yeah.
Tricia is online with us, so she could probably make a comment too. But we are planning a full report and debrief around the pool to the board, but we need to wait for the season to finish. So Tricia will probably comment. I think it's sometime in March, end of March. Perhaps Tricia could update us about the date. But we definitely want to give you some really clear information about. In fact, it'll be quite a big view over a number of years of everything that's been done to try and increase patronage and use of the pool.
Sorry, can I just check? At the moment, I can only see 3 board members, which is not a quorum.
No, it's not.
Scott and Howard have got their camera Scott's back. That's a quorum. Thank
Tyrone and Howard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. So Trish, can you? When does the pool close? Trish, you were going to say?
Yeah, it closes. I think it's the 24th of March. Actually, when you were saying that, I probably do need to check that date just to be 100% sure. I can check it and come back to you. But following up on from what Pen was saying, I have completed an update for the board. Sorry, I keep going in and out of connection here. And that will outline all the activation that's happened this summer and the timelines from when the pool opened after the earthquake. It's just to give you a complete update on what we've been doing to try and activate the space. And it will also include a copy of the review that was completed for pay to play. So I'm just waiting for the season to finish before I'll present that to you. So that will be coming probably in April to the boards.
Thank you, Tricia. We appreciate that it was quite a big lot of information to kind of collate and get together. So no, thank you for that. Ruben, you just carry on with, you've got another couple of questions.
I do. So then just at the bottom of that table, there's an update on the Le Bons Bay half basketball court. And that looks like things are moving along, which is fantastic. I just wondered if there was anyone could give an indication of what the fundraising target was for that.
Is that about Robin? Is it Robin or?
No, look, so COVID has entirely got in the way of a staff member being on present today to answer that question for you. Apologies for that. I don't have that level of detail in my head. So we'll have to get back to you with that.
Get back to you.
All good,
Thank
totally
you.
understandable. And the only last thing I wanted to mention in here was when we get into the ticket reports for Banks Peninsula, we've got Jan and Feb in this. And there's the nice pie chart that gives us the breakdown of website versus SnapSend Solve. And then the third category, which is the largest category, but incorporates phone, email, and walk-in tickets. And I just wondered if it's possible for us to see a greater breakdown of what's going on in that teal section of the pie, especially just with being able to assess the use of and effectiveness of our service centres that we kind of had to get involved in keeping open in Akaroa and Littleton.
Okay. Yep, we can ask for if there's a breakdown, but we could also ask for some specific information about the stats of each of the 3 service centres, if you'd like.
That'd be great.
That might be a wee bit more useful than just that breakdown. Yeah.
That'd be
Right.
Thank you. That's me.
Okay, so I did see, was that how, did you have your hand up? You had some questions? Hang on, Howard, and then Nigel. Hang on, I'll go Howard first. Howard, mute. Howard, you're on mute. We can't hear you. Here we go.
If Liz, if I can ask Liz, if I flick over and start reading the briefings, do I disappear, do I?
I guess that's what's causing it. Yeah, it comes up with just the black
Howard.
screen and your name.
Okay, so I can't with Zoom. I can't flick over back to the bit hub to read all the information.
So can someone else advise on that? Because everybody else seems to be able to do it.
Well, that must have been what's happening with me too, Liz, because I was flicking over to pull out some information when you said I was blank. So
you've got to set up on a separate computer.
Okay, is that how you do? Okay, no, it's just an operational thing. Obviously, I'm having problems.
Yeah, but we can find out how you can get around that, because I know that if I go and look at other things, that my picture still stays here. So there must be some way of doing it. We'll find out and get that info. But it obviously, in the meantime, if you're doing that, you're then disappearing.
Okay, mate, thank you. I just couldn't figure out why there was the alert.
No, thank you, Howard. We appreciate the clarity on what's going on. Okay, any further questions regarding the area report? We do. Yeah, sorry, Nigel, you did have your hand up.
Yeah. I just further on what Ruben's saying about the service centres. I think if we could also get a feedback on what services are being provided. We heard that the obviously that about being able to book the gaiety from Akaroa and the sports fields and things and other amenities would be good to get some information on. If that's
well, my understanding is that the service centre is doing everything that a normal service centre would do, but
what about booking facilities?
They can now, they can now book the gaiety and other local. They can book other local facilities like the sports pavilion. What else is there that gets booked locally?
What about the sports fields? So can they be through there?
No, I'm not. You pass. I can find out about the sports fields. Was there anything else in particular? No, I'm pretty sure they can.
Pretty much that one, I think, would be.
Yeah, I think Robin's got her hand up.
I can see that. So Robin, you've got your hand up. So Robin.
Yeah, that training is being booked in for the customer services staff. So whether that training is complete yet or not, I'm unsure. Once they've had bookings training, they should be able to book any facility, as far as I'm aware.
Thank you, Robin. Appreciate the clarity. Okay, do we have any further questions for staff regarding the area report? No, okay, so we have we got the recommendation just to move the area report or receive the area report? So
Tori, and so yes. Can we add a second part to that the board decided to make a submission in support of the extension to the Whakarapo Mataitai Reserve?
Yeah.
Happy with that, everybody?
Yes. Yep. Okay, so we're going to move out for both of those, the area report and the extension.
Sorry, just on that letter, so we'll see it before it goes out, eh? We'll get an opportunity to put some feedback. Okay, cool. Standard process.
Usually gets circulated and then Tori has the final sign off.
Sweet as. Cheers.
So mover, I did see Scott's hand up to move, is that correct? And seconded by Ruben for the area report and for the letter of support. So, okay, moved and seconded. All those in favour, just raise your hands. Right, that's carried. Thank you. Right, now we will go on to members exchange. I'm going to write a wee list because my screen keeps changing over, so bear with me a second. Scott, do you want to start off with members exchange?
It'd be my pleasure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Right, there's a bit from me. It's been rather busy over the last few weeks. I'll start with 3739 James Drive. I had a call from John Scott and his neighbour. They have a stream running through their property that's fed by James Drive Reserve. I've sent an email to Katie with the information so she can follow that up and you don't have to write down all my waffle. But it seems to be an ongoing thing in the peninsula here with council land and water egress off council land through or onto other private property. They have a stream running between their properties into the road. For the last 10, 15 years, the council have maintained that. They haven't come to maintain it this year, and John rang up and the council said that they'll be cutting that service and no longer maintain that stream. His concern is there's a lot of rubbish and debris that comes down there as well as silt, and it goes into the stormwater. So yeah, I've sent it to Katie's, but I'm basically just asking staff whose responsibility is it to maintain the stream, and I think we should be doing something about the huge big grate that allows sediment and rubbish to run into our stormwater and out to sea. It's not on, not for our environment in the peninsula. That's that ticked off. Second one is TAP, the new park. We signed the deed. I've also sent everybody an email. Signed the deed last Wednesday, which has allowed us to become an incorporated society and register for charitable status, so we can receive more funding and take land ownership. There's lots and lots happening. I've again sent an email, so if anyone's interested, they can have a read. In that email is a management plan that was provided by Mananui. It's an iwi management plan, and it sort of gave me some new ideas from what I thought a management plan would be and implement. So it's quite interesting if anyone's keen to have a look. But yeah, the park's full steam ahead, and if anyone wants a tour, let me know. I'll be happy to take you up there. I can take you up on the gator so you don't have to walk the whole thing, which will be good. Right, we've got Save the Jetty, which is Governor's Bay. I'm sure you remember we've been briefed on the Save the Jetty Trust, who brought the jetty off the council for $1 and have recently just put a submission into the council to secure a loan so they can sign building contracts and get the work started. There's still $850,000 needed to get the works finished, but with that loan they can push the button on starting the actual construction, and it will prevent price increases and material supply difficulties and all that. So that was a huge big win for them, and I thought they presented really well to the council, which was good. What they would like from the board is a letter of support. I think from memory everybody was quite supportive of the whole thing. They're not asking for funding from us. They're talking to staff about other applications for funding. Obviously the long-term plan has shut, so they can't apply for that, but there will be other avenues. So yeah, I was hoping that the board could agree on giving them a letter of support so they can have that when they apply for different grants, which would be cool. And the last one is Godly House. The media put a bit of a story in, like someone had pointed out. It wasn't quite correct, but they got it out there, and a lot of local interest, a lot of offer of support from professional structural engineers, gas fitters, drain layers, builders, professional architects, a lot of locals trying to help, a few big entities with a lot of money that are interested. So yeah, we're just sort of, the local group is talking to them. They can obviously put their own proposal in, but the locals would like to be part of what they're deciding to develop on that site. As you all know, the hardest thing will be changing the reserve status on a bit of land. So we're going to ask council for some advice around that. But it's looking pretty positive, and yeah, lots of interest in it. So real stoked. That's it from me.
Sounds good. Thank you, Scott. Now, Liz, do we need to have a mover, just a letter of support? Because I'm sure the board, you would be happy to support a letter of support going to the Governor's Bay jetty. So do we need to move and second that, or no, we're just happy to?
You can just do it through your normal process
channels.
for a letter of support. So we can do that and
Get the ball rolling on that one.
circulated, and then I think it's you and or Tyrone that gives the okay to go ahead.
Thank you. No, if we can get that ball rolling, that'd be fantastic. Thank you, Scott.
Awesome. Thanks, team. I really appreciate it.
Tyrone, I have actually got you on the list. Did you have something urgent?
Oh, I just had a question for Scotty, actually, just on that stream, mate. Like,
yep.
What's the name of it? Sorry.
Well, it's not a stream. It's a channel that was created by the council when they put in James Drive Reserve. So it's been there for a long time, and it's between the two titles, between the two property. I'll send you the email that I sent Katie with a Google map on it. So it doesn't have water running it all year round. It's only when it rains. But when it does rain, the reserve itself is quite a big catchment, and you get, plastic bottles, silt, shrubbery, and it all goes straight into the stormwater.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
So
I just want to just double check, sort of double back to sort of Whakaraupo Healthy Harbour, just to make sure that it's kind of on their radar, because it sounds like it should be.
Well, it's
all.
Again, I'll send you the email, but again, it's only 300 metres of stream that runs into the stormwater, but when it rains, the accumulation of water is quite massive. But like I said, it's not an isolated incident around this area. There's a lot of catchments that are either council owned or under council's maintenance schedule that just put water straight into our stormwater, and with it, a bit of silt and everything else. So it is something that we need to be aware of.
Cool. Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay, so Scott, just for some clarification for the minutes, it sounds like it's a stormwater drain. Is it? It's an open stormwater drain?
It is an open stormwater drain, but they put a grate on it because it was the size of a little mini and a kid could fall down it. But this stream that runs through these properties feeds directly into it. And it's at the moment it's overgrown with shrubs and trees and everything else. So I mean, the homeowners rang me yesterday and I went around there because I thought it was quite important if we do get a rain and silt goes in there, and we cleaned a bit of silt out and about 30 bloody plastic bottles. They just want to know, because the council have told them that they'll no longer provide that service. So whose responsibility is it? And if it falls back on the landowners, then hey, I'll get the RMC and we'll go around there and put a silt trap in and sort it out. But yeah, I think it's something we should be get on top of, because this is going to come up, especially with winter coming more and more and more in this area.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. Right, so the next one I've got on my list is Ruben. Have you got something from Movers Exchange?
Yeah, I do. I had a question from a resident who is currently unable to access council facilities based on their vaccination status, and the question was really on behalf of their child. What systems are in place, particularly with libraries, for their kid to be able to get books out of the library? And I wasn't sure whether we had a report, an update coming from library staff in the near future where we might be able to ask that.
Liz or Penelope, can we?
Are they actually able to go online, Ruben? Because I don't know exactly, but I know that through Turanga that they've got heaps of things that they've put in place for people who can't access the library facilities. There's extra online stuff. I'm just not sure of all the details, but if they can, it'll be on the CCC website.
Yeah, I'll have a look.
They can get into that. Yeah.
And link them up with that. And I'm just assuming that the timing around changes to access, and I've said as much, will be determined by a central government decision on the same, right? Like it's all led from central government, Ministry of Health decision making on the issue.
I think it's a council decision, and the council have already said, or council staff, the executive leadership team have already said that they, you know, they would review that decision anyway. So
yeah,
it will be reviewed.
Next one was I can't remember if it's a briefing or within a future meeting that we've got Doc potentially coming along to talk about some of their dock reserves within Littleton. Does that ring any bells?
I don't think there's anything there. Is there, Linda? Can you think off the top of your head if we've got any briefings coming up from Doc? Under there? No. If you give me a couple of minutes, I'll have a look that up if you keep going on other stuff.
Cool. And I can always send an email through separate to this just on that issue. And then the third one, and it's just picking up on the earlier point about the drop off in RMC meetings happening in the red light setting. And there's been some frustrations about that, particularly in Littleton, around the times since there has been a meeting of the Littleton Urumo RMC, because it's been a long time. End of last year was the last meeting that happened, and Tyrone and I were both at that. And I think it's fair to say there's still a number of issues that won't have gone away in the time in between. But there's no meetings scheduled in the foreseeable future. And I just wondered whether given that staff are able to assist with Zoom licenses to empower a committee to be able to achieve a quorum and have that meeting, is there any way that RMCs can be compelled to hold their meetings, or can be assisted or empowered to ensure that process that they're there to facilitate can continue?
They can't be made to have meetings, but we can help them. We've already said that we could help with some advice and stuff around Zoom or Facebook meetings or something. I know that there are some who say they've got members who haven't got computer facilities or broadband or Wi-Fi, whatever. So they're really in the same position as the board at the moment. That's what the instructions that we have given them, that they can't meet in person, but they can have audio-visual meetings. Otherwise, we've asked that they either cancel or postpone.
Yep. So if I could just butt in, staff are working with the Littleton RMC, who are keen to use the Zoom. We're just trying to make sure that it's accessible for all of their members. So we are really working hard with them so that they can have their meeting online.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. Thank you.
And just as a follow-up to the doc thing, there's nothing coming up in our briefing schedule. So I'm not quite sure what you might have been thinking about. Are there some reserves in particular that you want an update on, or? Yeah,
it's the reserve. It's part council, part dock, and it's directly above. It's got Major Hornbrook running through it. I can't remember off the top of my head the full name of it, but there's a couple of issues in there to do with signage and maintenance, maintenance both from a maintenance that dock are providing and also maintenance that other private people are carrying out.
So could you flick us something through on an email about it, just some details in that, and we can follow up? But it sounds like something maybe a ranger team is involved with.
Yeah, I'll follow it up with an email. Thank you. That's everything from me.
Thank you, Ruben. Okay, next on my list I have Howard. Do you have anything from Members Exchange?
No, I'm pretty sweet.
Okay, thank you. Nigel.
Yeah, I've got a few things to cover. Just back, you made a comment, Liz, that it's the council decision or the CE's decision to keep this the meetings at this sort of level where it's all Zoom. Can they not just? Could we not lobby to get them to rethink that as quick as possible? Because you're there.
Yes, I am. I think it's to do with our facilities and actually being able to hold the meeting and still comply with the red light setting that we're in. So it's, often it's because our facilities are actually not big enough to take everybody and fit everybody in the room and things like that. That's why we've gone to audio visual, and it's really only council that is meeting in person.
But couldn't we just time the people in? Like only allow 2 people in at a time, and the rest sit at a cafe over the road, because they've all got cafes nearby the facilities.
Sorry, Nigel, are you talking about the public coming in for 2 minutes at a time?
Well, yeah, and if the RMCs need a meeting, and they've got places like the Gaiety or the Hall and Little River and bigger facilities where they don't need to actually have all the technology.
Except, okay, so we have a CE signed off business continuity plan, and for that, other than council, who have been meeting in person, all of the other governance structures are not allowed to meet in person.
So we can't affect that.
The RMCs are part of our governance structure, unfortunately, and even,
Ken, can I ask a question with that, please? Because
Sure.
Diamond Harbour, we spoke about this last week at the Diamond Harbour Association. We've got our AGM coming up, and it is a council-owned facility we're using. However, they've opted to hold it in person with all the 2-metre regulations and all that. Is that still acceptable? Yes, because they're association, not an RMC?
Correct.
Yep, cool. All right. Yeah. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure.
Okay. Just back on the historical profile, the heritage profile. It'd be good to make sure we take a Beniki Reserve and the Standing Monument locally as well, and to actually, this is really all coming back to what I've been saying about educational tourism as a real value set for the peninsula, and telling the New Zealand story. There's no better place to tell it. The fishermen situation with the wharf, it's a real concern, and I think now that we've got a meeting before the decision meeting is really important. I would hate to think that there were people that couldn't operate for 2 years in this environment. Robinson's Bay behind Pavitt Cottage is a bit of a move going forward. As part of the project for the wastewater, they proposed that we can have that Robinson's Bay can have a piece of land behind the Pavitt Cottage as a potentially a reserve, but the move now is to get that gifted to a charitable trust, and we have a proposal coming to the council for that land to be gifted over to a charitable trust, which would be a very good thing and a little bit of compensation for all the agony and Robinson's Bay had to go through. And that's about all for me.
Okay, thank you, Nigel. Tyrone.
Kia ora. I think it's worth noting. I was at I think I said at the last board meeting that the inaugural meeting of the Port Seafarers Welfare Committee Littleton branch had happened just before our last meeting. So since then, there's been quite a lot of activity. Like, for example, Russia's invaded the Ukraine, and what we've found is that there are actually like a number of Ukrainian seafarers in Littleton and Russian seafarers as well, often on the same boats, and they will get along famously, which is really positive. But it's just worth noting that there is quite a lot of work going on in terms of supporting those seafarers and providing them with the ability to contact home, because you can understand Some of them are quite shell shocked. Some of them are very worried about their families back home. So what we're seeing is that committee and that group and all the supports in place that support that activity sort of in action, right, to support the seafarers that come into our ports in New Zealand and specifically Banks Peninsula. And it's just a really good reminder that this board supported the law change and the introduction of levies to support seafarer welfare centres and all that sort of stuff, because when the rubber meets the road and real things happen in the world where people need support, wars happen, and so these are some little contributions that we here in Banks Peninsula can make towards people's well-being. So I'm just really proud of the whole process and proud of the board and proud of especially proud of the people that work really hard with seafarers. So I just thought I'd just raise that just so that we can all sort of know that sort of stuff is going on. So thank you so much. Just another thing, I would have raised from time to time the work that was being done at a small reserve. Well, it's not really a reserve yet, but like a former tract of red zone property just above Littleton there, which has become a memorial orchard for the victims, the Littleton-based victims of the earthquakes 10 years ago, 11 years ago. And so, I mean, it's a really amazing space, and I would encourage you to get up there. There's signage, and it's well tended now, and there are trees growing there, to forage. And it's just worth noting that it's my understanding that one of the families of one of the victims spent some time up there on Sunday doing some plantings. So that's just an ongoing process. The space is secure now. It's owned by the council. It's a thing. It's a living thing, and it's just a really good thing. And it's really not really that well known that it's there, but it is a beautiful space, a contemplative space. And again, it's just the work that this board does and other groups. Life in Vacant Spaces did so much heavy lifting on that. It's not even funny. But I just think it's just worth knowing that the families are engaged with it, and it's going well, and it will be an asset for the community in the future. So yeah, that's all from me.
Thank you, Tyrone. We appreciate that, and yes, it is hard to miss what's going on in the rest of the world at the moment, and we do understand that some people can't help where they're born from or whatever, but our compassion and empathy need to go with all sides at the moment, especially when you're stuck on the other side of the world and can't get home to friends and family that are in the middle of this conflict, whatever side they're on. So yeah, no, thank you for raising that, and we appreciate what the work the Seafarer Centre and the team in Littleton do for those people. Thank you for sharing that. I have got just one thing myself before we finish the meeting. Oh, if I can find where I've put it now. I have been speaking with Councillor Southworth from ECAN regarding what's happening in Birdlings Flat. She wasn't quite aware of what was going on there, so she has raised that with her team, and she has asked if we can write a letter to ECAN, because she thinks it'll be good to come from the board as well, that these concerns, so something formal.
I'm sorry, Tori, did you just say that ECAN was not aware of what was going on?
No, Councillor Southworth.
Oh, okay, sorry, yeah.
So
no.
Elected member. So no, ECAN is aware of what's going on, sorry, but Councillor Southworth, being the representative for Christchurch South, incorporating Banks Peninsula, and Phil Clearwater, weren't quite aware of what was going on and the impacts that I have on the residents in Birdlings Flat. So she has asked if the board could send a letter.
I'm sorry, I'll just interrupt you, Tori. There's actually an action from the last meeting to that effect.
Okay, so we'll just incorporate
right to ECAN, asking them to update the residents of Berlin's flat, because it's actually, you know, the consenting all
Yes,
rests with them.
discharge.
They're the consent authority, not CCC.
So we have already got that in place. I think that's what she was asking, and she, from the councillor's point of view, and that team, a former leader as well, but they are asking the same things, is that more information be given to the community and to them as well, because like I say, they weren't aware, the councillors, of what was going on. And so, like I say, thank you, Liz. We have already done that. I appreciate that. And I do see that curbside collection for Bedling's Flat and Wairua have gone out. So yes, I am going to forward that to residents and get them to have your say, because I mean, lots going on with the annual plan submissions. I did have something else, but I can't locate that right now. I think that's on my phone behind the Zoom screen, so I will get to that next time. Ruben, can I get you to finish with a karakia closing?
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
Kia whakaria te tapu, kia wātia ai te ara, kia turiki whakataha ai, kia turiki whakataha ai, haumie huie tā kie.
Kia ora. Thank you, everybody.
So we're obviously finishing half an hour before, or 25 minutes before we thought we would. So do you want to maybe have a slightly longer lunch hour and come back about 15:15?
To give time for staff. Is that okay for staff to get ready for this afternoon and bringing things forward and juggling things around?
Yeah, we have got the dog park people on standby to come in earlier, and we can also pull forward the governance managers update. So we'll confirm that during the lunchtime. And also just a reminder, don't leave the Zoom meeting. You can switch the camera off and stuff, but don't leave.
So
Scott,
when can the dog people, park people come in? Oh, sorry, carry on.
Just a quick question about that. I was going to bring up with the police briefing about cruising zone in Banks Peninsula. Obviously, they had a big rally last weekend. And
can we do this outside the normal meeting? So I see we're still live.
Okay.
So I've got the meeting being down as closed, but I'm not sure if the live stream.
Yeah,